The town of Hollowridge was forgotten by most maps, nestled in a corner of the countryside where the roads twisted unnaturally and fog clung to the trees like cobwebs. Elena Marsh had never heard of it until she inherited the Hollowridge Manor, an estate left to her by a great-aunt she never knew. She arrived in the late afternoon, her car tires crunching on the gravel driveway. The house loomed in front of her, a towering Victorian relic, its roof clawing at the gray sky, its windows hollow as blind eyes. Ivy strangled the walls, and the iron gate groaned shut behind her like a trap closing. Inside, the air was stale. The scent of rot lingered in the corners. Dust veiled every surface, and the silence was heavy. She explored the room slowly, the drawing room with its black marble, fireplace, the library with books that hadn't been touched in decades, the kitchen with knives still stuck into a cutting board. Everything was untouched, preserved in a strange waiting. That night, as she lay in a creaking bed under moth-eaten covers, she heard footsteps above her, slow, deliberate, pacing. But there was no second floor. The next morning, Elena decided to clean the place, hoping movement and light would dispel the dread crawling beneath her skin. In the parlor, she found a large portrait covered by a white sheet. She pulled it off and gasped. The painting depicted a woman who looked nearly identical to her, same dark hair, same sharp eyes, same crooked smile. The nameplate read, Eleanor Hollowridge, 1864. Under the painting, carved into the frame, was a message in Latin. She photographed it and used her phone to translate. It read, "She waits beneath." As she stared at the portrait, she heard something whisper behind her. She spun around. No one. The voice had been soft, female, and close. "Don't trust the mirror," it had said. That night, she avoided the mirrors. Yet when she passed the hallway mirror by accident, her reflection didn't move. It just stood there, smiling wider and wider. Elena screamed and smashed the mirror. Behind the glass was not wood, but a dark bricked tunnel, a hidden passage. Armed with a flashlight, Elena returned to the shattered mirror at dawn. She pulled away more fragments, revealing a crawl space. She squeezed in. The tunnel was narrow and damp, carved crudely through the earth. It sloped downward. The deeper she went, the colder it grew, until she emerged into an underground cellar beneath the manor. There were symbols on the walls, runes drawn in blood, bones arranged in spirals. In the center, a well. Elena approached it, her breath misting. A whisper rose from the darkness below. "Return what was taken." She leaned over and saw nothing, until a hand reached up. She staggered back, heart racing. The cellar door slammed shut behind her. She tried to run, but the darkness moved with her. Shadows flickered along the wall, forming figures. A woman, head twisted backward. A child, mouth sewn shut. A man, eyes gouged out. These were not ghosts. These were memories of the house. The ground trembled. She turned and fled through the tunnel, feeling fingers brushing her heels until she burst back into the hallway, breathless and sobbing. Elena dug through the manor's attic, seeking records. In a locked trunk, she found Eleanor Hollowridge's diary. The entries told of madness, rituals, and a pact made beneath the house. Eleanor had discovered an ancient spirit sealed below the land, a watcher, and traded her soul for eternal youth. The price, one bloodline sacrifice every generation. Elena was the last. "If she lives, I sleep," the spirit had told Eleanor. "If she dies, I rise." That's why the house had called her back. That's why the portrait looked like her. The spirit was bound beneath the house, but Elena's death would break the seal. She was not a guest. She was an offering. The final entry was a warning. "If you find this and bear my face, flee. But know the house will follow." Elena packed a bag and tried to leave, but the gate would not open. The road had vanished into mist. The forest pressed inward. The house wanted her to stay. That night, Elena lit every candle she could find. She traced salt circles in the halls, chanted prayers from Eleanor's diary, and sealed the cellar door with iron nails. The air grew thick. The house groaned, angry. In the reflection of a broken mirror, she saw the spirit approaching, tall, faceless, draped in rags of shadow. It reached out. Elena held up Eleanor's locket, which she'd found earlier. It shimmered with violet fire. The spirit recoiled. "You are the end," it said, in a voice that was a chorus of suffering. Elena ran to the tunnel and descended one last time. At the well, she opened the locket and dropped it in. The house screamed. Every candle blew out at once. The floor split beneath her. She fell into darkness. When she awoke, it was morning. The house was silent, peaceful. She walked outside. The gate opened. The fog cleared. Elena never returned, but the house at Hollowridge still stands, waiting. Because the spirit didn't die. It simply changed its face. And some nights, if you walk near it, you'll see a woman in the window, watching, waiting, smiling. Title: The House at Hall. 3 years had passed since Elena fled Hollowridge Manor. She had built a life in a distant city, changed her name, and avoided anything that reminded her of the house. But nightmares never let her rest. They always ended the same, her reflection smiling back with Eleanor's dead eyes. When she awoke one morning to find mud caked across her bedroom floor and ivy creeping through the apartment walls, she knew the house had found her. It started slowly. The air grew cold even in summer. Electronics failed without reason. Cats hissed at her shadow. She received a letter in the same inked calligraphy as Eleanor's diary, unsigned, but stamped with the crest of the Hollowridge family, a black crow perched upon a key. Inside, a single sentence: "You were never meant to leave." That night she heard the sound of someone whispering in the vents. It wasn't the neighbors. She didn't have any. And when she turned to look at her bathroom mirror, her reflection had vanished entirely. In its place was the image of the manor's front door, wide open, waiting. The next morning she drove without stopping. She didn't remember packing, didn't remember starting the car, but when she blinked, she was on the same twisted road leading back to Hollowridge. And the house, which should have been rotting and empty, stood untouched. The ivy was gone. The roof was mended. The windows were lit with warm yellow light. It looked alive. The moment she crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind her. She didn't scream. She just whispered, "I'm home." And for the first time, it wasn't her voice. Inside, the manor had changed. The dust was gone. The air smelled of candle wax and lavender like it had been lived in. The piano in the foyer played soft nocturnes by itself. Paintings she had never seen before now lined the walls, each depicting a different version of her in different eras. A nurse from the 1920s, a grieving widow from the 1800s, a burned witch on a stake, all with her face. She followed the sound of laughter up the stairs that hadn't existed before. The second floor was now fully formed with crimson wallpaper and ornate woodwork. At the end of the hall, a single red door pulsed like a heartbeat. She opened it. Inside was a red room, walls, floor, ceiling, all soaked in a deep scarlet. A table sat in the center, candles flickering around it. At the head sat Eleanor Hollowridge herself, sipping tea, her body pale and preserved, her eyes hollow but aware. "You've returned," Eleanor said, her lips moving slowly like cracking paper. "The blood remembers." Elena tried to speak but found her throat frozen. She could only listen. "We are one," Eleanor whispered. "You are my vessel, as I was hers. The spirit does not die. It merely walks through us, over and over." Eleanor raised a hand and pointed toward a shadow in the corner. It stepped forward, tall and lean, wearing Elena's face, but older, smiling cruelly. "Meet your future," Eleanor croaked. "She's been waiting." The mirror on the far wall shimmered. Elena saw herself, aged, broken, dressed in Eleanor's funeral gown. Her mouth opened. "Come home," her reflection said. "Let me in." Elena ran from the room, but the hallway had changed. Now it led downward, deeper into the house's buried levels, into rooms that had never existed. The manor was shifting. The descent felt endless. She moved through a labyrinth of staircases and corridors that twisted in impossible directions. Time lost meaning. The deeper she went, the more distorted the world became. The walls pulsed like veins. The lights flickered and whispered. Her own footsteps sounded delayed, as if the house was deciding whether to mimic her or devour her. She arrived in a massive underground chamber, a hollow dome carved into the earth itself. In the center stood a black tree, leafless and growing out of stone. Hanging from its limbs were hundreds of glass orbs, each containing a flickering image of a person screaming. She recognized some of them: her mother, her grandfather, her great-aunt, all descendants of Hollowridge. A figure stood beneath the tree, a child, no more than 10, eyes pure white, hands covered in ash. "Do you know what this is?" the child asked without turning. "This is the place where the Watcher was born." Elena asked, "Who are you?" The child turned and revealed Elena's own face again, younger, innocent, frightened. "I am the you who never left, the part that stayed, the part they fed." The orbs began to crack, one by one, releasing shadows into the chamber. They whispered to her, calling her by old names: Agnes, Laura, Eleanor, Eve. The house had been feeding the spirit with their souls, generation after generation. The Watcher rose from the roots of the tree, a faceless thing made of mouths and eyes, stitched together with strands of memory and bone. It didn't move toward her. It simply watched. And waiting to see what she would do, Elena stepped forward, holding the silver locket once more. But it had rusted shut. "You were never meant to win," the child self said. "Only to return." Elena stood before the Watcher and made a choice. She would not run. She would not be a vessel. She would end the curse. She reached into her coat and pulled out Eleanor's diary. Pages fluttered in the stale wind. One ritual remained, a reversal. She read it aloud. The chamber screamed. The Watcher howled, the sound of every scream that had ever echoed in the house. The tree cracked, its roots bleeding. The glass orbs exploded, and the souls of her ancestors flew around her like a cyclone. One voice, her great-aunt's, whispered in her ear, "Bind it to the blood it cannot consume." Elena slashed her palm and pressed her hand against the stone roots of the tree. Her blood sizzled, igniting the chamber. The Watcher lunged, but was drawn back by the souls, who now dragged it downward. The child self cried out as it faded. "You were the last. The door is closed." The house above collapsed in on itself as the ritual completed. Elena fell to her knees, the ground beneath her turning to ash. And then, silence. When she woke, she was in a field. The manor was gone. No ruins, no gate, just earth and wind. A crow flew overhead, dropped a silver key at her feet, and vanished. Elena picked it up and smiled. Not the smile of a survivor, but of a guardian. The house was gone, but its memory lived in her now. And if ever the Watcher stirred again, she would be ready.